All right, so welcome back. In the last video, we talked about operators. We introduced some arithmetic operators and boolean operators. In this video, we're going to start talking about flow control. And you can imagine as we write JavaScript applications, and we're starting to write instructions, and we're getting a lot of lines of code. At some point, we want to execute certain blocks of code under certain conditions. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So how can we code these conditional blocks of execution that we want? Let's talk about what code blocks are first. So right now I have this script tag and it has all of this code in it. It's one big block of code. You're going to see me writing in a second things like this. So I open a block of code with an open paren. I call it open mustache sometimes. And I close a block of code with a closing paren or closing mustache. But this is a block of code right here. And so what we're going to see is we're going to define blocks of code that are conditionally executed based upon some syntax that we're going to learn in this video. So the first conditional statement is just an if statement. So if some expression here, and right now I'm just going to write the word expression. If that's true, we're going to execute this block of code that's inside of here. So we'll say console log. This is inside the if statement. Now this expression has to be something that's a boolean expression. It has to be able to evaluate to true or false. And we had a bunch of those the last time. If you look at our video number 5, we start talking about boolean expressions where we did comparison operators. These all evaluated to true or false. We also did logical operators like and or and nots. Any kind of operators like this or this, perfectly fine for the expression that is going to be put into our if statement. For example, I can just put the value true in there. So it's not really an expression, it's just a value. This statement should always get executed. Now my IDE is saying, hey, we can simplify this code a bit. Obviously that's true, but let's just refresh this, see what I get. It console logs out inside the if statement. If I were to put false in here and I refresh, I don't get anything console logged because it never got inside that if. So I put some expression here. So if, for example, let me define temperature, and let's say it's 75, and I want to run this block of code only if the temperature is greater than 70. Let's see what I get here. I run this, and I'm executing the code inside the if statement because my temperature variable has a value of 75, and that's greater than 70. If I were to switch this to less than 70, that block of code would not run. So that's an if statement right there. I have some expression, and when it evaluates to true, I will execute the code inside the if. Now let me copy this, and we're going to go down here to the next. It says if/else. If it's less than 70, let me just do this. So it's less than 70. We'll put that there. I can have an else not less than 70. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I just write greater than 70? Because it may not be greater than 70. It may be equal to 70. Let's just cover these two cases right now. I have this expression, temperature is less than 70. If it is less than 70, I'm going to get in here, I'm going to console out less than 70. Otherwise, I'm going to console out not less than 70. So let's go ahead and refresh this, and I see not less than 70. If I were to change my temperature to, say, 65, and I refresh this, it says it is less than 70, and I'm getting this first if statement to execute also. I'm going to just comment this one out so we can keep our output to the minimum over here. So I refresh, less than 70. Let's set it to 70 now. And I refresh this and it says not less than 70. And it's not less than 70, but what if I wanted to capture that case where it is exactly 70 and say it's equal to 70? Well, I can copy this, and I can extend this to another option. So I can say else if, let's go, temperature is greater than 70. I'm going to execute this block of code. Else, we can actually put down here it's equal to 70. So I'm going to comment out this block of code, which just had the if and the else. And we're going to run this one now. And I refresh this. Currently right now, the temperature is set to 70 degrees. So let's just console log that out here so it's more clear. I refresh, it says temp is equal to 70, and it's equal to 70, just like I thought. If I put 65 with this line of code, it should come down here less than 70. That is going to be true, and I should end up in this code block, less than 70. If it's greater than 70, let's run this one more time. This first code block gets evaluated. Is it less than 70? No. So we're going to jump down to the next expression. Is it greater than 70? Yes, it is. So I will enter this block of code. Now, one caution you may want to have, especially when you're comparing numbers. Numbers can be a bit finicky for reasons of number accuracy and how numbers are stored. If I were to compare this equal to 70 and just switch these two around, then I could end up with issues where this isn't exactly equal to 70 because of, say, maybe some rounding errors, and I'm at 70.0001. And I have to decide as a developer, is that case something I want to honor? Is 70.001, is that really equal to 70 in this application? Maybe it could be, maybe it's not. But I want to be careful when I'm comparing numbers. And that's the reason why I chose to do less than 70 or greater than 70. And then this final branch is going to be exactly equal to 70. So that is one way to write a conditional statement. In this case, we're using if, and else keywords to create a conditional block of code. So I'm going to comment this out. Then now let's take a look at a different way of executing conditional blocks of code. We're going to use something called a switch statement. And in this case, I'm going to define a new variable called color, and we'll just make it red. So we're going to have a switch statement, and then I'm going to have some blocks of code. Now this switch statement has a block on its own, and inside that block, I can put case statements. So for example, I can say case, if it's equal to red, then I want you to do whatever is in this block of code. And for now, we're going to leave it just like this. I want to run this through and see what we get here. So I'm going to refresh, and you can see color is red. And I'm still up here. I can comment this out now because I don't need this and I don't need that temperature anymore. So I'm just getting color is red. Now, what if I wanted to add additional case statements? So maybe it's blue and there's green. So I can say case green or blue here. And I'm going to do one more, and my ID is already barking, but I want to make a mistake here so that we understand what needs to happen when we write these switch statements. So if I refresh this, let's see what we get here. And it says color is red, color is blue, color is green. And the reason it's doing that is because once it's inside this one case statement, I'm not breaking out of that code block. I'm executing all the rest of them also. If I want to only execute what's in case statement when it's red, I need to have a break statement here. So these all go together. Switch keyword, a case keyword, and a break statement. They all go together just like that. Technically on this last one, I don't really need a break, but best practice is put it in there just in case another coder at some later point adds another case statement here. So if I refresh, I only get the color is red. If I put in green and I refresh, color is green. If I put in blue and I refresh, color is blue. So my switch statement now is executing code, blocks of code based upon the value that I had. Now this is a little different than the boolean expression that was up here. I could write this in an if statement. So I could say something like if color is equal to red, then console log out, this is red. I could write that. So it's a little cleaner sometimes to use a switch statement. So we want to know all these different ways of having conditionals. It's just another thing that we can use. Now what happens if I put something like pink in here and I refresh? It doesn't print anything, and that's kind of what I expected, right? But if I want to have a default, then the other part of a case statement is I can put in a default here. Color is, and then maybe I want to actually console out the color. And now it says color is pink. That's how I can use a switch statement to execute conditional logic. So I'm going to go ahead and comment all this code out. There is something called a ternary operator, and before I introduce the ternary, I want to show you why this syntax was introduced into the language. It's a very common situation where I have some variable that I want to set to a value depending upon some other variable. So as an example, let's say I have outside of here, I'm going to have some color, and I don't know what this color is yet, so I'm going to set it to null, and then maybe I have another value, say score, and the score is say 78 right now. And what I want is, imagine I have an application where if the student score is above 80, then I want to show their score in green. I want to set this color based upon that score. If it's above 80, then I'm going to make it green. Otherwise, we're just going to keep it black, the normal color. So one way to do this now then is I would say if score is greater than or equal to 80, color is equal to green. Else color is equal to black. Think about some application, we're changing the font color based upon the score that the student got. This is so common that the language developers created a shortcut for this. I don't have to do it like this. I can simply write, I'm going to create another variable just to show you the difference, color2, is equal to, I can put the condition in front. Oops, score is greater than or equal to 80. That's my condition. Then I can put my ternary operator. And if this condition is true, it's going to be this first value that I put in here, green, or it's going to do the second one over here, which is black. So this statement here is exactly the same as doing this kind of thing here for that first color. So I have these lines of code versus this one line of code. I think it's a lot clearer if you can do this sometimes than to do it the other way. Now I wouldn't chain these so that they're super long. I've seen code like that and that gets a little messy and hard to understand sometimes, but this is certainly syntactically more clear, I think. So this is called the ternary operator. This is a way that you can execute certain lines of code. So instead of executing color equals green or color equals black, I'm setting color equal to one of those based upon that current value. Now there is one more null coalescence operator here. Let's think of another example here. Let's say I have some speed, maybe it's 45 miles per hour right now, but I also have a default speed, and say the default speed is say 30. And let's say I want to have some other variable that is set based upon the value of speed. So I can let some other variable here, we're going to set this, and it's going to be either speed, and this is how we write the null coalescing operator, is a double question mark, or the default speed. And what this means is if speed is set, if it's not null or if it's not undefined, then we're going to go with whatever value then that speed has. So let's go ahead and console log this out so we can see it here. It's like that. So if I let this run right now, let's see what we get here. It says variable is equal to 45 because speed was set to 45. It doesn't matter what I set this to. If it's set, then it's going to be equal to that value. But if I didn't define it, let's run this again. And now you see how the variable has a default value. It's going to the default of 30. If I set this to null and I rerun this, the same thing happens. So instead of using null, I'm using the default value. So this is an easy way to set a variable value. If you're given a variable and it could be null, say it's nullable or undefined, and you then want to default to a default value, you can use the null coalescent operator. Okay, so that's it for this video. In this video, we introduced the concept of conditionals. First, we started off talking about what a block of code was, and then we introduced some keywords that allow us to execute blocks of code conditionally. And we started off with the if statement, and then we went to the if-else statement, and then we went to the if-else statement. We also covered switch statements, so it has the other keywords like case and break and default in there. We talked about the ternary operator. It's kind of a shorthand syntax for a more complex if-else statement. If you can avoid it, then we can use that syntax there to make it a little more cleaner code. And then finally, we landed on the null coalescent operator. In the next video, we're going to start talking about another control flow concept called loops. We're going to discover how we can execute loops in JavaScript. We'll see you next time.